Okay, so now we're going to do a linear regression example with the TI89 titanium, showing you how to get everything linear regression related from this calculator. So on the TI89 titanium, you need to access your statistics menu by pressing the apps key and then finding your stat/list menu, hitting enter, and that takes you into the statistics menu. Now your list names are probably going to be different than mine because I've renamed mine specifically to my field and my own personal taste. You can name the list names whatever you want. They usually come standard named list 1, list 2, things like that. But what you want to do is select a list and enter the X variables into one list, and in order to clear a list, recall that you highlight the list name, press clear, and then enter, and that'll clear out any old data. I've already entered these X variables, X data points, 3, 6, 12, 18, and 24 into my what I've named dependent X list, and then I've entered the Y variables, or the Y data points, 60, 95, 140, blah blah blah, into my Y hat list name. But what you will do probably is enter your X's into the name called list 1 and enter your Y's into the name called list 2. This example is about age and weight, and if there's a correlation between them, and we're looking at Shetland ponies where Y is the weight and X is the age. So if we know the age of the pony, can we predict its weight? Now for all the linear regression stuff, you can access it in several different menus. One of the menus that it is in is through F4, and you can scroll down to regressions, and if you can see, it has linear regression, or linreg, A plus BX. That is the most commonly used model, and that is the model that we'll be using. But your book, depending on your instructor or your book, might use AX plus B. So you would select either one of those. It also has many different types of regression models. But in linear regression, you want to be sure you pick LINreg versus, for example, LNreg. Many people confuse these. LNreg is the logarithmic regression, and you don't want that if you want linear regression. So pick the model that you're using, press enter. It asks you for your list names, and you just make sure that they are correct, or if they're not correct, you enter them using your alphabet keys. And it asks you for frequency. That's usually always 1 unless you've stacked your data in some way, and you just press enter, and it gives you the linear equation, or the prediction model, A plus BX, and so you substitute in your A manually, you substitute in your B manually on your piece of paper, and now you've got the prediction model. So it does the prediction model. The correlation coefficient is R. The coefficient of determination is R squared, and we're using the prediction model A plus BX. Like I said, your book might use AX plus B. It depends. And that's what you get from the calc menu. You can also access all the same information, if you needed to do a test. So let's hit OK to get out of that menu, and now let's go to test. So that's second F1 for the test, and let's say you wanted to do a hypothesis test for linear regression. Well, we'll do a linreg t-test, press enter. It asks you for your X list and your Y list and your frequency, which is usually always 1. It'll ask you for your alternative hypothesis statement. Are you doing a two-tailed test, a right-tailed test, or a left-tailed test? And you select the one that's appropriate for you by hitting enter. Store regression equation 2, I'm not going to do that. Results calculate rather than like plot. Of course, I always want to calculate things because I want to know numbers. Now it gives you your t-test statistic, which is handy, especially if your instructor requires that to be written down by hand. Your p-value, which is what I use in hypothesis testing, and I compare it to my level of significance and base my decision on that. Notice it also gives you A, B, it gives you S. It's important to note that S is your standard error of estimate. So S equals SE, and if you've ever had to calculate that guy by hand, you know how incredibly obnoxious he is to calculate. It's not hard. Nothing in mathematics is hard. It's just always very tedious. It gives you the coefficient of determination, R squared, as well as the correlation coefficient. So through that linear regression t-test menu, we've accessed almost everything linear regression related in one single menu, which makes it nice. Now if you needed to do a confidence interval, you would go to your interval menu, which is second F2, and that brings up F7, ints. Ints means intervals. And it has all the different confidence intervals that are possible. One of the confidence intervals is number 7 linreg t interval. Make sure your list names are appropriate, and then it'll ask you what kind of interval you want. It has a slope interval or a beta interval, or it has a prediction interval. So if you hit the slope interval, that'll give you an interval for what the population slope is, and you set your C level or your confidence level. If you're doing a 95% confidence level, you want to enter 0.95. If you wanted to do a prediction interval, you hit the arrow key to access. Anytime there's an arrow key in this calculator, it means you can hit arrow and have more options. If you wanted to do a prediction interval, or aka a response interval, you would click that, and then you have to enter in your x value. So if you wanted to predict the weight of the pony when the pony is 6 months old, you can enter 6 in, and then you can hit OK to make sure everything's okay, and then you got to hit it again for it to actually start calculating. So it gives you the prediction, which is pretty nice, and that is just based off of the equation, but then it gives you the interval, okay, so that you can be 95% confident that the population model will be, the population y is between this value and that value. It gives you the mean square error, it gives you the standard error. It gives you all kinds of really nice things. It gives you A and B again and R squared and all of that stuff all over again. It just keeps giving you the basic linear regression stuff in every single menu with linear regression. And that's pretty much the basics of doing linear regression with this calculator. It's a really menu-based calculator, and just never be afraid to play around with it and get to know all of its in and outs on your own. And if you have any questions, let me know.